sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving right into Miami, where those ICE raids have been all over the news lately.
Yeah.
Our focus is going to be this story from CBS News Miami.
Okay.
It's about a Miami resident and his wife who was detained during these raids.
Oh, wow.
We'll be using an article from Latin Times that goes deeper into this particular case to explore the bigger picture of what's going on.
Okay, so kind of a more personal look at how these events are affecting families.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
It really hits home when you see the human impact of these events.
Right. It's easy to get lost in the statistics and the policy debates.
Exactly.
But these are real people's lives we're talking about.
Absolutely, and this particular story really underscores that. The article mentions that this resident's wife was in the process of getting her U.S. citizenship.
Oh.
She even had a court date all set up.
And then
ICE agents just detained her during a raid in Brownsville.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's shocking. Like, how does that even happen when someone is seemingly following the legal process?
It really does make you question the system.
It does, and it makes you wonder how widespread this is.
Right. Like, is this an isolated incident or part of a larger trend?
Well, the article actually highlights some pretty staggering numbers.
Okay.
It says that ICE made over 2,300 arrests in just a 4-day period.
Wow. That's a huge number.
I know, and almost 1,000 of those arrests happened on January 26th alone.
So it seems like there's definitely been a surge in enforcement activity.
It does, but what's the reason behind it? Is it just about numbers, or has something changed in their approach?
Well, the article suggests there has been a shift in strategy under the Trump administration.
Okay.
They seem to be taking a much harder line on immigration, aiming to deport undocumented immigrants on a much larger scale.
So even if someone is trying to obtain citizenship legally, there's still a target under this new approach.
It seems that way. The article quotes Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, as saying that anyone in the country illegally is on the table for deportation.
So basically, regardless of their circumstances or whether they're trying to follow the legal process.
That's how it appears, yes. It's a significant departure from the previous administration's focus.
Which was
Primarily on deporting individuals who were considered public safety threats.
So this is a much broader approach.
Much broader, yes.
Yeah.
And it raises a lot of questions about due process and the fairness of the system.
Right, because if someone like this Miami resident's wife, who is seemingly following the rules, can be detained, what does that mean for others who are trying to navigate the immigration system legally?
It's a very valid concern, and it really highlights the complexities and potential pitfalls of the system itself.
Yeah, it's not exactly an easy or straightforward process to obtain legal status in the U.S., is it?
Not at all. It can be incredibly lengthy and difficult, filled with bureaucratic hurdles that can take years to navigate.
So even if you're doing everything by the book, so to speak, there's still a chance you could get caught up in this wider net of enforcement.
That seems to be the case, unfortunately, and it underscores the vulnerability of individuals within this system.
It's a pretty sobering thought.
It is. The article, by focusing on this one family's experience, really gives us a glimpse into a much larger issue.
Right. It's not just about numbers or policy debates.
Exactly.
It's about real people and the very real impact these actions are having on their lives.
And it forces us to confront some uncomfortable questions about how we, as a nation, treat those who are seeking a better life within our borders.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that these aren't just abstract legal debates.
Right.
There are real human consequences at play here.
Absolutely. And we need to be having a more nuanced and compassionate conversation about how we approach this issue as a society.
I agree, and it's a conversation that needs to happen everywhere, in our communities, our workplaces, and our homes. But we'll delve further into that in just a bit, so stay tuned.
Looking forward to it. This case is just heartbreaking, but it's sadly not an isolated incident. The article mentions that 2 construction workers were also detained in Brownsville during those raids.
During these raids.
Yeah, it makes you think about the wider impact on industries that rely on immigrant labor, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we often hear about the impact on families.
Yeah.
But the economic consequences are huge, too.
Oh, they're massive. Think about agriculture, construction.
Right.
Those industries depend on immigrant labor.
Yeah.
If these big raids keep happening, we could see labor shortages.
For sure.
Prices could go up, and it could even slow down the economy.
Yeah, it's a domino effect.
Exactly. It's a much bigger issue than just immigration itself.
It really is, and it seems like they're happening everywhere. The article mentioned raids in neighborhoods, workplaces, even during traffic stops.
It's true. This shift in strategy is really scary for immigrant communities.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Imagine constantly worrying that you or someone you love could be detained, you know?
Yeah, regardless of their legal status or anything.
Exactly. It creates this atmosphere of fear and uncertainty.
Yeah. It's understandable that people would be on edge, feeling distrustful.
Oh, absolutely.
But the administration argues that these raids are necessary.
Right.
They say it's about deterring illegal immigration and keeping the country safe.
Yeah, that's the rationale. They think that by making deportation more likely, people will be less likely to come here illegally or stay here without papers.
Right, they're trying to send a message.
Exactly, a strong message.
But is it really effective? I mean, couldn't you argue that it's more about creating fear than addressing the root causes of immigration?
Well, critics say exactly that.
Okay.
They say it's too harsh, and it doesn't deal with the reasons people immigrate in the first place, like fleeing violence or poverty.
Right, it's like trying to fix a leaky faucet by mopping up the water
Exactly.
instead of fixing the leak itself.
That's a great analogy. Plus, this climate of fear can actually make things worse.
Yeah, so,
Well, when people are afraid, they're less likely to report crimes
well, that makes sense.
or even seek medical care. It creates this shadow population that's really vulnerable.
And that doesn't benefit anyone.
No, it doesn't. So you've got the fear, the economic impact, the ethical concerns. But what about the legal side of it?
Yeah, is it even legal?
That's a big debate right now.
Yeah, okay.
The administration says they're just enforcing the laws we already have.
Right.
But critics say some of their tactics are illegal, like separating families at the border
Oh, yeah.
or detaining people indefinitely without a fair hearing.
So even if they're technically following the law, there are concerns about whether it's actually constitutional and ethical.
Exactly.
So going back to the Miami resident's wife, the article said she had a court date.
Right.
Does that mean she was applying for asylum or some other legal status?
It's possible, but applying for asylum is complicated. You
Yeah.
know, even with a court date, there's no guarantee.
And as we've seen, even if you're going through the legal process, you're not safe from these raids.
That's the scary part.
It just seems like such a difficult system to navigate, especially if you don't speak English or have legal help.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge challenge for a lot of people.
And hasn't the Trump administration made it even harder by cutting funding for legal aid?
That's right. They've made it more difficult, and they've sped up deportations.
So even if someone has a valid reason to stay, they might not have the chance to make their case.
That's a huge concern for human rights groups and lawyers.
Yeah, they're saying it undermines basic fairness.
Exactly.
It just feels like this whole conversation about immigration is so oversimplified.
Yeah.
You need to look beyond just enforcement and deportation
Absolutely.
and consider the real human impact of these actions.
I completely agree. We need to look at the bigger picture and move beyond the political rhetoric.
Right, because at the end of the day, this is about real people, families, communities.
Exactly. We need to remember that and approach this issue with empathy and a willingness to listen to each other.
I couldn't agree more. We've talked about the fear, the economic impact, the ethical and legal concerns, but we need to remember that this is ultimately about human beings.
Absolutely. It's about how we treat each other as a society.
We've just scratched the surface of this issue, and there's so much more to unpack.
Right. It's so complex.
But you said earlier that this goes beyond just immigration.
Absolutely. It really does.
What did you mean by that?
Well, when we argue about immigration, we're actually arguing about our values as a nation.
Okay.
Like, who are we? What do we stand for? What are our responsibilities to other people?
Both here in the U.S.
Yes, both here and in other countries.
It's about our identity as a nation,
Exactly.
how we treat people who come here
Right.
seeking a better life.
And the decisions we make now will have consequences for generations to come.
Wow.
Will we be a welcoming and inclusive country?
Yeah.
Or one that's closed off and afraid?
It's a big responsibility to think about. And sometimes I feel like, what can I even do? It's such a huge issue.
I know what you mean.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed.
But I think every single voice matters.
Really?
Every conversation, every action can make a difference.
So what can our listeners do if they want to get involved?
There are a few things depending on what you're interested in.
Okay.
One thing is to support organizations that are helping immigrants.
Like those legal aid groups we talked about.
Yeah, exactly. They
Yeah.
defend immigrants' rights, make sure they have lawyers and resources.
You can donate to them.
Yes, donating helps a lot.
Okay.
You can volunteer your time, too, or
Wow.
even just spread the word about their work.
Okay, so that's one way to help.
Another thing you can do is contact your elected officials.
Like our senators and representatives.
Yeah, tell them what you think about these issues.
Okay.
Let them know you care about immigration reform
Okay.
and that you believe in due process for everyone.
But that's a good reminder that we have a voice in this.
We do. And the more people who speak up, the more our leaders have to listen.
Right, so it's not just about donating or volunteering.
No, it's about making your voice heard in the political process, too.
And what about just educating ourselves and others?
That's huge. Read articles from reliable sources.
Yeah.
Listen to podcasts like this one.
Of course.
Talk to people who have different viewpoints.
Right, to get a better understanding of the whole issue.
Exactly. The more we know, the better we can advocate for change.
It's about cutting through the misinformation.
Absolutely. And recognizing that it's not a simple issue.
There's no easy fix.
Right. It's about empathy, dialogue, and finding solutions that work for everyone.
This has been really eye-opening, you know.
It has.
We've gone from those personal stories
Yeah.
to the policy changes, the legal stuff,
The economic impact.
and it all comes back to the human impact.
It always does.
These ICE raids are just one part of a much bigger story
It's a story about who we are as a country.
and what we value. Thanks for joining us today on The Deep Dive.
It was my pleasure.
We hope this has given you a better understanding of this complex issue.
Absolutely.
We encourage you to keep learning, keep talking about it,
Yeah.
and most importantly, take action in whatever way you can.
Even small actions can make a difference.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
We'll see you next time.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.